version.
Finally, we get into the time travel part. The part I've been waiting for the whole time. Future proves past, Q looking glass. So there's a number of Q posts that say Project Looking Glass going forward in order to look back. Think mirror, which is also interesting. Think of a mirror as a portal through the looking glass. I don't know how many times they would say looking glass, Alice in Wonderland, Alice in the Mad Hatter, Alice in Wonderland, HRC equals Alice. It came up over and over again. Who are the White Rabbits, which is also part of Alice in Wonderland. I'm just, all these are just to show you how many times Alice in Wonderland, Looking Glass, all that stuff comes up in the Q drops. And take note of this White Rabbit here. So we didn't really know the connection between Looking Glass and the White Rabbit before. When Q was dropping this, we didn't know the connection. It wasn't until 2022 where this book Project Aquarius came out, which by the way is literally no longer available anywhere on the internet. It's not in print. You can't find it anywhere. Aaron, you managed to find a PDF somewhere, right?
You can, yeah, actually, you can download the Kindle version of it on Amazon for like $10,
Okay.
I think.
But that's it. There's not a
That's
physical
it.
copy anywhere.
Cannot find a physical copy or anywhere outside of Amazon and the PDF
So
Kindle.
what this book contained is, well, I'll just read. Do you believe in aliens? Have you ever wondered if there's a connection between aliens and the government? If so, then the Project Aquarius book is a must read for you. This incredible book offers an in-depth look at the links between aliens and the government, and it will definitely leave you mind blown. With 75 pages of pictures and text, it is time to take this conspiracy theory seriously, so don't miss out. Grab a copy today. So in the book, it has blueprints, schematics for the Looking Glass device, which were provided by Michael Schratt, which we'll get into him in a minute. But these are AutoCAD drawings by Michael Schratt per the Dan Burrish testimony and sketches. So this is apparently the Looking Glass chair, which is allegedly reverse engineered from a downed UFO, seat from a downed UFO. But we have drawings of it. We have area S4, level 4-2, which is called Alice's floor. What is contained on Alice's floor? The Looking Glass device. You have Q, you saying through the Looking Glass, think mirror, Project Looking Glass, Alice in Wonderland.
Follow the White Rabbit.
Follow the White Rabbit. Well, guess what? Alice's floor is level 4-2 of Area 51, and it contains Project Looking Glass. And that rabbit, a stuffed Alice in Wonderland rabbit, is permanently mounted above the entrance to the Project Looking Glass room. Follow the White Rabbit. This is Q telling you they are using Looking Glass technology. This is how they're making their predictions. It's not the yellow cube. The yellow cube isn't as accurate as Looking Glass.
So yeah, so real quick, supposedly the yellow cube is influenced heavily by your personal biases.
Right.
So if somebody uses the yellow cube, and like Hillary Clinton, for example, and she, of course, really, really wants to be president, and that was the plan anyway. But still, like, of course, it's going to show her everything she wants to see, and the timeline that it's going to be heavily influenced by her biases, basically. So
Right.
the Looking Glass is a lot more neutral. It's not influenced by any one person's biases. What my understanding, the Looking Glass just shows what the trajectory we're on at the point in time that it's used. So humanity's on this trajectory at this very now point in time that I'm looking at the Looking Glass. That doesn't mean that's going to happen. That just means this is the trajectory, unless some major things change or we make some major different choices, right?
Right.
That's all the Looking Glass does. It's showing you the trajectory of what's going to happen based in that now moment.
So this is a schematic of level 4-1 at Area 51, which they call the dark side of the moon, which this shows a hallway here with all these different UFOs parked in these different hangars, which reading the Sands of Times books, this is very accurate. And the reason they call it the dark side of the room is because when they were doing their time travel, when they finally successfully were doing their jumps, the first jump that they did was to the backside of the moon, where they already had a base decades before the Apollo missions. The Navy already had a base up there. But the Apollo missions was all 100% a smokescreen dog and pony show.
Oh yeah.
But they were able, technically their first jump room was to the moon. And once they create, they said once they create tear in the basically in the universe, once they do the jump, it stays there permanently, but their technology somehow keeps it stable. Before they were tearing holes in space and time, but it wasn't stable and things could come through. But they had figured out a way to keep it stable. And once they made a jump from one location to the other, they now had a permanent jump room. And they can literally go to any place and time they want as long as they had the coordinates. It didn't matter if it was on another planet. That's how these jump rooms worked. So anyway, side note. And then so these drawings came from Michael Schrott, who claims to have firsthand experience with the classified governmental black programs with access to former U.S. Air Force pilots, retired naval personnel, and former aerospace engineers with top secret clearance. Schrott takes us on exploration of the alien presence on Earth, blah, blah, blah. But he has some background in firsthand military insider experience. And these AutoCAD drawings were done by him. You can't make these unless you know something. I'm sorry. All right. And this is I think this is from Bob
This,
Lazar.
yeah, this is Bob Lazar talking about what he knows about the Looking Glass,
And
what he
Project
was
Looking
told.
Glass.
Project Looking Glass dealt with the distortion, the fact that there's a time distortion, essentially looking back in time, and by that I do not mean looking back years ago to see the wagon train days. They're looking for distortions that are milliseconds in time, and what that was used for, I don't know, but that was just observing the time, the time distortion, time dilation phenomena of the craft in operation.
Again, the only thing I could verify was what I had my hands on. There was talk of weapon systems, that there were different projects. Project Galileo, Project Sidekick was supposed to be weapon applications of the craft. Project Looking Glass had to do with time, any effects of time in the craft. Now, I don't think we're not talking about making a time machine like in science fiction, but we're talking about, small distortions, intentional distortions of time, and how that can be used, as a, not as a, well, it was part of a weapon program.
How are you informed in this?
These, again, were just the small briefings that I read.
Now, what's interesting about Bob Lazar in the Sands of Time books, they talk about, so when they were doing all this time travel stuff in the background, they needed this is when they were trying to kick off their disinformation campaign because too many people were getting close. They were like discovering the truth. So they literally sent out somebody to recruit a low-level scientist, aka Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar.
Bring him into Area 51, show him the sports model, let him leave and leak that information to the public. And then their plan the whole time was to smear him and discredit him to literally cause confusion and muddy the waters. Like he was a plant for the disinformation campaign, according to the book.
Which is why they erased all his records, and anyone who tried to look to prove that he went to the schools that he claimed and did the thing, it looks like he's a fraud. It looks like he's lying because all his records have been erased.
So he was just used, basically.
He was a pawn used as a disinformation, even though a lot of what he says is true, but it's still, he's very much a
well, it's true, but then they come out and discredit it. So like, he must be. And it just causes
But
confusion.
even the Looking Glass stuff, like, notice he's only saying, oh, it's just little distortions in time. It's
no,
not,
it was a time travel device. Yeah.
It was a time travel device, but all they told him was that. So that's all he knows,
And this is on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's talking about this. So,
right.
And then this is Dan Burrish talking about it a little more in depth.
And so the individuals who want to carry the negative, I'm convinced that it's going to occur, are not presenting the facts. The facts are, this is the material that we have available that we know.
So what you're saying is the Illuminati, to get back to that thread,
yes,
is basically the side that believes that the transition is going to occur from one timeline to the other.
Not only do they believe that it will occur, they want to provoke it.
The Looking Glass shows probabilities, or has shown probabilities. The cube would react with the people present. So there was an alteration, if you will, over what you were seeing from it. But I was also allowed to show them probable outcomes. So in fact, the Yellow Book, the cube, was used for that purpose. Shockingly, they happened to see themselves standing on the bones of their own families and things like that. The Looking Glass device was a back-engineered Stargate. the looking glass shows probabilities, or has shown probabilities. The cube would react with the people present. So there was an alteration, if you will, over what you were seeing from it. It would actually spin out as a yellow disc out of the top of it, where the word yellow book originally came from.
Yeah.
And depending upon what predisposition, it's kind of like little Yoda telling young Luke, you bring in there what you have with you. You know, whatever is in there is what you bring. You could then change the perspective, the tilt, if you will, the orientation or angle of the information being presented back to you. So unless you are well prepared to deal with such a thing, human interaction and human emotions bring instability of the provenance of the information. In the case that we're in right now, we seem to be in a variant of timeline 1. And that's good.
Oh.
For everything that I've seen and have read and reported to me concerning timeline number 1, it's not happening exactly the way that they figured that it would. But then again, it couldn't, because we've made changes along the way, which diverted us away from timeline number 2. And in so doing, our future, again, I regard our future as something which is pretty much a blank slate. We're writing it for ourselves. And so we are now seeing something coming to pass which is slightly different than the prognostication, than the probabilities that we were seeing. And I'm good with what we're seeing so far, but you know, we are still faced with the challenges of the environmental degradation.
Yeah, so there's a perfect explanation. Looking Glass would see 2 timelines, an ascension timeline and a dystopian timeline, and they couldn't see past 2012.
Right, and they were always trying to divert us to timeline 2, the timeline they wanted us on.
Yeah,
the New World Order timeline, et cetera, et cetera.
And they're still delusionally trying to do it, even though even though the technology shows timeline 1, the ascension timeline, no matter what.
No matter what they did, it would always but
they're
we would always snap back to timeline 1, even if we temporarily kind of were on there. We'd always end up on timeline 1.
But they literally still think that they can alter it. They think there's got to be a way to beat this, right? And that's what we're seeing now. Okay, so this is really interesting. All those Q drops have trip codes. Somebody, some genius, decided to type one of these trip codes into a Google search, and this is what happened. And Anon apparently tried to put Q's trip codes into a Google search, and it seems that they may have hit the jackpot. Each trip code search leads to the find of numerous books. All of these books seem to be relevant to Q's drops. One such book seems to come up 3 times in the search, which is rather odd when you think about it, how random Q's trip codes seem to be. What is this book, you ask? Take a wild guess. Alice's Bloody Adventure. There is one also called, Where We Go One, We Go All, by Glenn Brunette, about a teenage girl abducted. But this is interesting. So you type in the Q trip code, it brings up a list of books.
Into Google, right?
Into Google.
Yeah.
These are some of the books. The Spinning Magnet, The Electromagnetic Force That Created the Modern World by Tesla. The Nephilim, The Truth Is Here, Aliens, The Devil's Chessboard about the NWO, Trump Tower, POTUS, Exopolitics, a Dr. Michael Sala book, comes up from a Q trip code. Exopolitics, the political implications of the extraterrestrial presence. And apparently, I've heard that there's a picture of Trump with this book on his desk, but I couldn't find it. The Power Elite, the NWO, the Operation Gladio, the unholy alliance between the Vatican, the CIA, the Mafia, the Pope, the CIA directors, human rights violations by American psychiatrists, MKUltra, Blood, Money, Power, how LBJ killed JFK, The Bridge, Life and Rise of Obama. Pretty crazy, right? So think about, they're not just giving you stuff to decode, they're giving you books to read that literally tell you everything that's going on, including the political implications of the extraterrestrial presence.
And Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper was also...
Right, that's the next slide.
There you go, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another big one that came up, Behold a Pale Horse. But that's crazy, right?
And there's a lot more, because it's literally...
There's a whole list, yeah, but those are some of the prominent ones.
Right.
And then Q said, you can count the people who have the full picture on two hands. Of those, less than 10 people, only 3 are non-military. Why is this relevant? Game theory. Outside of a potential operator who has been dialed in with orders specific to his or her mission, nobody else has this information. Operators never divulge. Alice in Wonderland. Well, that's crucial. People always speculated who are these 10 people who are Q, and the 3 non-military were always speculated to be extraterrestrials, which we're going to get into.
Yep. Ding, ding, ding.
But this is the Sands of Time 2 talking about the same thing, how less than 10 people have the whole scope. And if you don't mind reading this, Aaron.
You're Harv's boss, ultimately, aren't you? I asked. I am the boss, as you say, of everyone involved in these projects, ultimately and completely. I keep people like Sir Charles and a few others to do the diplomatic stuff out in the open, where presidents and prime ministers have someone of their own ilk to deal with. Me, I am more of the backstreet brawler type that looks to get the job done any way I can, using any methods necessary. Ted, I don't play by the rules. Let's get that out way up front. What you told Lord 2G is accurate and correct, and there are not 7 people in this world who know that. 2 of them are in this room right now. Harv would be the third sitting up there getting drunk, figuring that someone is going to put a bullet in the back of his head tonight. Ellen learned about it just today with you. This, at one level, makes it unfortunate since I wasn't ready to pull her all the way into this mess just yet. But that is a consequence and circumstance of war, as they say. The other 3 are my counterparts, one in Europe, one in Asia, and one in South America. They do the same thing that I do, coordination of defenses in preparation for the event horizon, as we call it. Your dating and time frame was the only thing that was a little off tonight, but that is understandable as well. The event horizon can only occur past and beyond the December 21st, 2012 alignment date. It's a function of logistics, if you can believe that, on the part of the reptoids.
We can dissect all this and tell you what all that means. But this was in the early days. This is from like the 60s, I think. This time.
Yeah, this is in the 60s.
And they're talking about 10 people back then. And you're like, okay, well, wouldn't more than 10 people know now? Well, no, because he asked, well, what happened to the people before me? And he's like, well, they're in mental institutions. Their minds are scrambled. They don't let these people just go back to a normal life. So they keep a strict hold on who has this information, who has access to it. Now, I think it might have grown more and more people have like the bigger picture, but a very, very small group like have it all.
This is the highest level of classification there is, period. Top of the pyramid. Right. You're dealing with the ETs and this level of technology. This is the highest level, and this is what they even the good guys in the military and stuff, like it's very highly guarded information.
So this is another really good episode of John Warner IV, whose father was a secretary to Neighbor, and his cousin is actually Chris Mellon, who many of you guys know to be one of the popular UFO guys out there. This is a great episode with him. Him talking about the Navy having access to time travel years ago.
There's a story that a Navy friend sent to me. I don't know if it's true, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. Everyone knows the Philadelphia experiment story. High voltage, T. Townsend Brown did the main mass with the emitters. Physicist John von Neumann, I think the Varian brothers and Vannevar Bush and the MIT Rad Lab, John G. Trump, they were all involved. Anyway, it went south. They didn't know what they're doing. Like I said, a lack of a psychic navigator. In the Navy, they're like, oh, fuck that. We'll just flip the switch and see what happens.
Yeah.
But my friend sent me, he said, there was this Navy crane ship. And a crane ship is this big, beamy ship with a giant crane. It's for salvage operations. Now, the story goes that in 1936, this ship, and I think with some other Navy ships, were on a salvage mission, officially. But unofficially, they were looking for pieces of Atlantis technology. And what it was these crystal structures. Well, anyway, the ship was equipped with powerful electromagnets and radio emitters. And I'm not sure who was involved, but, probably Tesla is my guess. Maybe he was on board. Anyway, they found this structure. They sent down a Navy diving bell and maybe some divers. on the hose line, and they found this one structure. Tesla probably knew to activate it with this electromagnetics. Well, it came on, and like the Bermuda Triangle, a portal opened, and this ship went either into the past or the future. No one's quite sure. And what they came back with, no one knows. But the ship's name was the USS Kearsarge, Kearsarge. And I found one picture of this crane ship. It's nothing sexy about it. And but then fast forward. In 1980, my dad said, I was in high school, and he said, come to me to this movie. It's a Navy movie. It's a science fiction. It's right up your alley. And I said, sure. Anyway, it was a Kirk Douglas movie called The Final Countdown. Mm-hmm. And they had the full cooperation of the U.S. Navy. Carriers, F-14s flying off the plane. The story was they went back in time through this giant portal, and they were going to stop the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Didn't happen, but that was the story. And I thought, this is strange. But we went to the premiere, and the place was filled with Navy brass and admirals. And Kirk Douglas was there, and I'm 18, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. But an admiral sat behind us, and he patted my dad on the back. And he said, Senator, with your cooperation, now we got our recruitment film. And they were all excited. Now, the movie didn't do well. It wasn't that great. I thought it was kind of weird, Navy, the time travel. I couldn't figure out why they were cooperating. Remember, in 1980, we were just about to get Reagan in office. I think the U.S. Navy and Reagan were perhaps getting ready to disclose some of those stories about Navy and portals and the Bermuda Triangle and time travel. But instead, I think George Bush Sr. probably put the kibosh on that because as vice president, he was really the power behind the White House.
Yep.
Certainly.
He was an asshole. I met him a couple times.
So what's interesting is that movie is incredible. It literally shows the Navy working with time travel technology. And if the story that he told us is true about literally all Navy brass being at the premiere and talking about it being their recruitment film, like Top Gun is a recruitment film. That's a film that's supposed to get people excited about joining the military. Well, why would they put out a movie about the Navy using time travel, going through portals as a recruitment film, unless there was some truth behind it? The film, I recommend watching this movie. It's better than he makes it sound. There's lots of disclosure in this film. The Final Countdown. Go check it out. And then we all know Trump introduces the Space Force. So now we're bringing the Navy, the Naval Space Fleet into this, the Space Force. It's pretty clear that Trump already knows about some of this stuff, but we're going to get into a little bit more of that. So Trump announced a new logo for the Space Force. The other is Star Trek Starfleet Command. So look how similar it is to Starfleet Command and Star Trek.
Yeah, it's almost the same exact.
Exactly. And people were making fun of it because, oh, it's sci-fi. But I think they're telling you, like, hey, guys, Star Trek is real. And basically what you see in Star Trek is pretty much disclosure of the Naval Secret Space Program.
Right. There's been insiders that have said Star Trek is disclosure of the Naval Secret Space Program of Solar Warden.
Right. And Trump, they released this symbol, like, oh, come on. First of all, it was interesting enough that Trump signed Space Force in the command anyway during his presidency. And he's like, okay, time to bring this stuff to the public's eye, right? They need to know we have a secret space program. Also, there's a character in Star Trek called Q, who is a time traveler. I mean, come on. You can't even make this shit up.
The first thing I thought of when Q first came out,
right?
Actually, because I had just watched all of Star Trek Next Generation not that long before, and I was like, oh, like Q in Star Trek. It's the first thing I thought of.
Right. And yeah, so they talk about the Q continuum in the show. The Q continuum is an extra dimensional realm, and as such exists outside of space and time continuum as the universe as we perceive it. It's highly likely as extra dimensional beings that the Q can travel through time in our universe. Our universe is either a space-time submanifold of a larger Q continuum or are two disconnected universes. In either case, the Q seem to be able to enter our manifold at a point of their choosing, point meaning a location of space and time, which is exactly what the Sands of Time books talks about. This is information apparently only from Star Trek, but like a lot of people say, the fandom information is the real disclosure. When you go onto these forums and read about this stuff, either way, there's no coincidence that they make the Space Force logo match the Star Trek logo. Star Trek has a character who can communicate, who can time travel. Q,
Q
named
is a
Q.
character.
Yeah, I mean,
It's Star Trek.
and then this is
Right,
Megan,
right. It's not a coincidence.
and then this is Megan Rose. Take everything she says with a grain of salt. She channels the Galactic Federation, but this is her information about Q, and it's really good. So we're going to play it. This is the episode we did with her.
So, you know, the bad ETs infiltrated our government. The Federation approached the US Navy and said, hey, we have this timeline technology where we can help you plan military events and events with political leaders and war to help you win this extraterrestrial invasion and this war. And so the US Navy said, yes, we're going to go with you guys. You're going to offer us advanced technology. And we're basically going, that's why it's called the Plan to Save the World. And so it's the letter 17 is a US naval intelligence operation. And am I giving intel on behalf of the letter 17? No, because I'm not in the US Navy. You can't run an intel op from the Federation or from anywhere unless you're part of a military, unless you're a member of their military, right? So, but they approached them, the US Navy agreed. And so it's the technology itself. I don't know if I would call it time travel technology. I would call it timeline technology, where they're able to use math equations, extraterrestrial math, we call it quantum, but I think it's because it's advanced and we can't understand how it works. But they use math equations to predict certain events or predict the outcomes of certain events and where to go and what to do and how to strategize their military. So I don't know if it's time travel technology, but it can predict the future or predict certain outcomes. And so what I know about that is that that's been successful. And that's why they say nothing can stop what's coming. The best is yet to come. The war is won before, we know about it, because they have predicted and been successful at getting us onto a certain timeline that leads to the liberation of humanity. And yeah, the Federation and the US Navy approached Trump to run for president, and he agreed. Right. So he's working with them. So Trump isn't necessarily responsible for the operation. He's just being agreeable with them, and it's a military operation.
Right. And there's been a few other people that said, like David Wilcock always talked about Trump being approached also and asked to run. And he actually has a lot more of the story in detail on how the meeting occurred. And Trump didn't really want to do it at first, but then he saw some of the videos and some of the things, and they showed him the magnitude of the situation, and he finally agreed.
So yeah, he was recruited. He was approached. He was approached by the call them the White Hats, call them the Alliance, call them whatever term you want to call them. Let's just say the factions of the military that know about the cabal, that know about their agendas, and they are fighting for humanity. They're fighting to free us from this cabal's enslavement. They approached Trump along with a couple other people at least, and Trump was the only one that agreed to do it. And the rest is history.
Aaron, do you mind reading through this one real quick? So this is from Megan Rose's book, Welcome to the Future, and she does a very short half page on the Q operation, the Q movement, but it's a great synopsis, great summary.
The Q movement was a United States naval intelligence operation that emerged on the Internet of Terra during the Trump administration. Many Terrans observed this operation as the work of the Trump administration. However, it was the work of the Earth Alliance and the United States Navy. The purpose of the operation was not to secure President Trump a second term, but a highly important operation with extraterrestrial involvement. The U.S. Navy operated this program from secure naval intelligence servers, a simple fact that the mainstream media conveniently ignored. The movement encouraged patriotism and family. It was the Federation and the Earth Alliance's goal to reveal certain truths regarding the cabal on planet Terra. The operation revealed the existence of elite pedophile and human trafficking rings that were serving the extraterrestrial infiltration on Terra, aka reptilians. As popularity of this movement grew, so did the counterintelligence operations. The counterintelligence discredited the movement in the following ways. They refuted the Q movement as a conspiracy on mainstream media, and secondly, spread lies and confusion among the followers of the movement via the internet. The operation was successful, although many Americans felt disappointed in the presidential election of 2020. It was all part of the plan. Future proves past.
Yeah, great summary.
Yeah, really good summary.
And this is President Donald Trump on Tuesday signed a directive centralizing all military space functions under a new Space Force, which will be overseen by the Department of the Air Force. And this is a photograph of the signing of that bill. But some people, I think it was Johann Fritz, maybe, I forgot where this information come from, said that standing in this room next to Trump were two extraterrestrials, a Pleiadian commander and a Lyran commander. And obviously, there's no way to prove this. There's no way to back this up. It's all hearsay. What I do know is if I didn't screenshot this image with these labels on it, we would not be looking at it today because it is no longer on the internet. And I've even reverse image searched it. The only thing that comes up on a reverse image search is the original photo, not the one that has the labeled commanders. Whether or
So
not
it's been scrubbed from the internet, and that should tell you probably there's some truth here.
And she has the Punisher, looks like the Punisher skull, which shows up a lot in the Q drops as well, which is something we didn't actually cover. But allegedly, we're looking at two human-looking in appearance extraterrestrials within the Trump administration, possibly part of the Q team, right there in front of our eyes. And these are my favorite Q drops. So when Anon said, "Q, are we alone?" Roswell, ? And the response from Q was, "No, highest classification, consider the vastness of space." Q. Then someone else said, "Did NASA fake the moon landing? Have we been to the moon since then? Are there secret space programs? Is this why the Space Force was created?" Q said, "False. The moon landings are real. Programs exist outside of the public domain." Q. And then somebody said,
real quick, that doesn't mean there wasn't fake footage used. They did film a bunch of fake footage, and that's what
which you can
the
find.
Majority of what they showed the public was the fake filmed footage. So it's both. They filmed the fake stuff, but they also went.
But according to the Sands of Time books, like we already had a base on the moon before the Apollo missions.
Right. Oh yeah, way before.
Yeah.
Right.
So yes, that's what they're telling you. We're not only been to the moon, we have literal command center up there.
And they didn't tell the public what they actually saw, what the astronauts actually saw on the moon, and that's why they were so depressed when they got back. As David Adair, who met them and talked to them, pointed out, he asked them firsthand why they were so depressed, and they kept saying, "I can't tell you, I can't tell you, I can't tell you."
Right.
And then he just was like, "Okay, well, they clearly saw some things they weren't supposed to see, or they can't tell the public."
So my favorite, this was an Anon. "Just to shut the flat earthers up, Q, is the earth flat?" And they just said, no.
No.
Simply no. And then you guys might have seen this video I posted today of Daryl James. I just recorded this today with Daryl James. Thank you so much, Daryl, for agreeing to do this for this webinar. This is what Daryl was told about the flat earth psyop while he was in the Navy.
I was in United States Navy. I was a Seabee. I was on an underground base in St. Maughan, England, when I was made aware by my executive officer, who first name was Robert, about Solar Warden, the United States Navy space program. And I volunteered for the program. And he could see after I got out of the military that I was looking at videos and things like that on the internet. He brought up flat Earth, and he said, if you watch a video of somebody who is talking about flat Earth, they either don't know they're deceiving you, they're being deceived, or they're deceiving you on purpose. He said because flat Earth was a PSYOP, psychological operation, invented by Michael Aquino back in the 80s, who was a psychological operations officer in the Army. They say he's dead now, I'm not sure. But yeah, he was a Satanist. He started the Temple of Set. He was under, what is it, Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan. He started out there with Sammy Davis Jr. and all those guys. But yeah, that's what he told me. He told me that it was, yeah, like a PSYOP. It was just a way to start, like, create confusion. I asked him why they did that, and he said it's just a way to create confusion, which is the Satanist way, like anarchy. I remember what the Earth looked like too, as far as I remember. It was a toroid, but it kind of looked more like a mix between a donut and a blood cell, in the sense that it was like it dipped at the top and the bottom like a blood cell, and that's where the poles were, where the ice was, the ice caps. So it dipped a little, and then it went across, and it went like that. And the continents were a lot smaller than you're told, and the oceans were a lot more vast. It was almost like you could see the magnetic field of the Earth kind of pulling the oceans apart. But I remember that part, yeah. It was a toroid.
So that's incredible information, in my opinion. And this is the first time Daryl has ever spoken about it publicly today. And I was on the phone with Daryl this morning. Him and I talk a lot, and he nonchalantly brought this up. I was like, Daryl, let's get on a Zoom call. I'm going to record that. And he's like, okay, let me shower. So this is all fresh as of today. And then this is John D'Souza talking about the extraterrestrial involvement with the Q operation.
I do believe that there are benevolent entities that are working with the Alliance, that are working for our good, for our benefit, and who are probably with the leaders of the Alliance all the time. Because I see so many things happening that require supernatural assistance, that require miracles to happen. I mean, if you really look at the situation very carefully, you can see, for instance, my dear friend Mike Barra has done a forensic examination of Trump's activities over the last 2 years, and he's come up with 5 assassination attempts that are available, that people can see happening in front of their eyes. And and I believe it, because he laid it out. Each instance, he laid them out, and he said, look at, this is what happened, watch here. And he showed the couple of them where these giant limousines come out of nowhere and try to smash the president's car, for no particular reason. And then the person inside doesn't even remember what they did or why they did it. It's, things like that. And it's amazing. And there's just so many miracles that keep happening, that keep protecting members of the Alliance, not just Trump, but other members of the Alliance too. And it's so I do believe that, as we've seen in the past, there are benevolent alien entities that are working with this, and who have much greater power than the ones on the other side.
So there you go. And what's interesting, he said the person that was driving the car didn't remember. That's mind control. That's how all their assassins work. It's all MK Ultra. They have alters. We understand all that.
Before you leave office, will you let us know if there's aliens? Because this is the only thing I really want to know. I want to know what's going on. Would you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's really going on there?
So many people ask me that question.
I know, it sounds almost ridiculous, but it's actually the real question I want to know.
It sounds like a cute question, but it's actually, there are millions and millions of people that want to go there, that want to see it. I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. But Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
So you're saying you may declassify? Oh. You'll take it?
Well, I'll have to think about that one, right?
All right.
I'll have to think.
All right.
Look at Trump's facial expressions in that video. Like, you can tell he knows way more than he's able to say.
Like,
and he's just like,
actually, I'm like, I
know a lot about that, actually.
He's like, actually, your mom is a Pleiadian, so.
right, exactly.
So, year of the UFO, Donald Trump ordered report into alien phenomena to be released. Donald Trump ordered a report into the unidentified aerial phenomena as one of his final acts as president, with outlets now predicting 2021 could be the year of the UFO. Obviously, it's been like the years of the UFO, but that we can potentially thank Trump for signing this into effect. And
Yep.
Former Israeli, this is from NBC News, former Israeli space security chief says extraterrestrials exist and Trump knows about it. A galactic federation has been waiting for humans to reach a stage where we will understand what space and spaceships are. This is on mainstream media. They're talking about this. I mean, how much more obvious can you get? And then we're going to get into Q clearance here. So what is Q clearance? Q clearance is a type of security clearance offered by the United States Department of Energy. It's a top secret clearance. They just go in saying, they don't make it sound that significant on the internet. They don't want you to think Q clearance is that big of a deal. But they do say Q clearance is the highest type of clearance given to contractors and often involves things like armed security escorts or providing said escorts when accessing certain types of information. But they say it's a Department of Energy clearance, which is much more than that. Apparently, Q level clearance is like 25 or 30 levels above the president on a normal day.
Right.
But this
and supposedly there's 35 levels, at least 35 levels of clearance above the president, and Q is close to the top of that.
Right. And this article from January 17th, 2024, this year, Trump's lawyer says documents show he kept Q clearance for nuclear secrets. No president has ever been known to keep Q clearance. And all of a sudden, they just slip it out in an article without anybody knowing about it. They're telling you right now that Trump had Q clearance. And then this is a Q post talking about what is Q clearance. It says, what is Q clearance? What hint does that explicitly refer to? DOE, Department of Education. Who would have the goods, or Department of Energy, I'm sorry.
Department of Energy.
Yeah, or whatever. Who would have the goods on U1? Does stating Q refer to that person's work in the Department of Energy? No. Does it refer that someone dropping such information has the highest level of security within all departments? Why is it relevant? And it just goes on a little bit talking about Russia and some other stuff, calm before the storm. But they're talking about Q clearance in a Q drop. And then this is, in the Sands of Time 3, they talk about what a black level Q clearance gets you. In particular, it talks about access to a facility that is a command center for the Naval Secret Space Program, for the United States Navy Secret Space Program. And they say very few people have access to this facility, and you have to have a black level Q clearance to get in. You want to, if you don't mind reading this, Aaron, this explains what's in that site. And if that's true, this means Trump had access to this type of information.
Right. A man might never set foot on another base after coming to this site, unless he was fortunate enough to be part of the select, honored, chosen few off-planet teams. Then the wonders of the universe awaited him. But space was really just another ocean. The screening process for deployment here was beyond intense. It made the SEALs, Green Berets, and Airborne Rangers look like getting picked for a game of elementary school kickball. The process was long, arduous, and in-depth, and only the very best could be chosen for this assignment. This was a beyond top secret unit of individuals. No one outside the space in China Lake even knew this assignment existed until they got it. Even the Navy had little to no control over the space. It was a black site on all their organizational charts. The commandant at Nellis Air Force Base, which this place was officially part of, or even the President of the United States, didn't have clearance to be here. It was truly a don't ask, don't tell facility in a different sense of the word. The advanced research that came out of this location was given to the Navy for implementation aboard the fleet and in the air. And by air, that meant above the earth and out into the universe. It was a research facility that just kept giving, and no one had to provide oversight. All the upper levels of management, straight through to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, were not really sure how this site was budgeted or paid for. No one had the privilege of knowing, and that meant no one, not even Congress, had any idea of what went on here, and even the top-level cleared committees only knew the name, and that it turned out some powerful systems. There were no congressional visits or photo ops here. Senior naval officers who did get involved never got past the main entrance building reception area that had only small offices and a complex of conference rooms. So most inquiring minds preferred to have video conferences with those at the Anderson Flight and Test Center, known to most on the inside as only as A2.
So the Anderson Flight and Test Center is where this is the facility, which you can't find hardly anything about online. It is not much. Like usually all the military bases come up on the Google search, not this one. Also, within this facility, I didn't put that slide. Within this facility, there's a statue of a Mayan statue. And the guy, when he was brought into the facility, he was like, "This is weird. Why would you have a Mayan statue in the middle of a Navy facility?" And he was told that that was a statue of the earliest recorded time traveler known to Earth's history. So they were saying the ancient Mayans were time travelers.
Yeah, this has been going on a long time. long time on this planet.
So in the book, they said no president has access to this facility unless you have a black level Q clearance, which if Trump had a Q clearance, that means he would potentially have access to this facility where they was the operations center for the Navy Secret Space Program. One of them. There's more, but this is one of them. This is just a fun picture somebody made of Trump making a deal with some Nordic looking ETs. So there's a whole rabbit hole where Trump and Melania themselves are Pleiadians and ETs. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. If you want, you can. It's a long one. But this is a interesting video, and I'm only playing it not because of the visuals, but there's some interesting Trump quotes in the video. Just interesting, and you'll hear why.
This is the final battle. They know it. I know it. You know it. Our objective will be a quantum leap.
Aliens exist, and President Trump knows about it.
He has called them the Galactic Federation of Aliens.
The Pentagon's expert warning about a possible mothership coming close to Earth. Stay with us.
You know, given the potential hazard that UAPs do present,
And when I'm reelected, the best is yet to come.
That's all. We'll let you guys go down that rabbit hole if you want to figure out if Trump and Melania are actually Pleiadians. All right, the last segment here. Geez, his is a long one. This quote just randomly shows up on the internet. Nobody knows where it came from, and it allegedly has no actual source. Trump never said it. Apparently, one of the articles says Trump didn't say it yet, but he could be a time traveler. But the quote is, "I don't know why time travelers are trying to kill me. I'm just a real estate developer." And it's a meme, it's on t-shirts, it's everything, but it's stemmed from somewhere. Where? We can only speculate. This is Brad Getz. We did a whole episode on Project Looking Glass, which I highly recommend. And this is him talking about a little bit of Looking Glass and Trump and John G. Trump.
I actually was trying to go to kind of debunk it in a way. And the more I found and the more I was talking about it and all this stuff, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I feel like there's actually something to it. And I remember thinking, like, man, is time travel possible? I kind of came away from that dig thinking there might be something to that. And like, one of the things that really got me was some of the Barron Trump books. That's at least what allowed me to consider it all. There's 3 of them. There's 2 Barron Trump books, and one of them involves time travel, and he has a mentor, a Don. I mean, Don is also a title, you know, but his mentor is Don, who helps him go in time travel. And there's all these interesting passages in it. And even they're in the Library of Congress. So they're you know, confirmed old books. And this author, Ingersoll Lockwood, right? He has the 2 Barron Trump books, but then the 3rd one is called The Last President. And it mirrors, maybe not exactly, but it mirrors Trump's presidency, like a little bit. It starts off with a president from, I believe, Manhattan, who they're protesting in the streets on Fifth Avenue, which Trump Towers and Fifth Avenue. And in this 2016 election, they were protesting in the streets in front of Trump Tower. And it's just certain things. And they're saying, he was, they were kind of maligning him and lying about him because he was an outsider, that he wasn't like a politician, and just things like that are super interesting. And then Ingersoll Lockwood, he wasn't a nobody either. He knew Abraham Lincoln. He was a ambassador, which, Trump, he's brought up Lincoln from time to time. There's a whole interesting stuff. And really, too, I think it's just kind of could be mired with the fact that John Trump, his uncle, who he really admires, was the one tasked with going over Nikola Tesla's works. And Nikola Tesla is rumored to have said there was an old, I think there was like an old newspaper article where he was sitting in a cafe and one of these reporters had come in, just happened to see him, sat down with him. And according to legend, I had looked for the article, and there's a whole chunk when this article is supposed to be where all of a sudden every Nikola Tesla article was kind of removed. And I thought that was interesting too. And apparently, as urban legend goes, he told this guy that he was fried, like frazzled. And Tesla told him, I just saw all time at once, and that he went through some energy thing that kind of sounded a lot like what Andrew Basiago was describing with the two towers and with the two booms and going through it. And as urban legend goes, that Tesla told him he walked through this thing and he saw the past, future, and present at the same time, and that he was kind of sitting in this cafe a little freaked out about it. So I don't know. It's weird. Did Trump get something? Did John Trump see something and then, told his family and passed it down and they used it?
Great episode. I can't recommend that episode enough. It's another one. It's another gem. Brad Getz, I forgot what episode number.
Somewhere in the 100s. That's all I remember.
Interestingly enough, this was just on February 8th, 2024. Trump just truthed this on Truth Social. Just a picture of his uncle, John G. Trump, at MIT, long before it was woke, he said. So this is a rare interview that I found. The universe leads us to stuff when we do these digs of Trump being a trained physicist and at MIT. And listen to this.
So other than his uncle being a student there, what is the correlation between Donald Trump and MIT?
Mr. Donald Trump had a friend at MIT. His name was Yukio Takahama. He taught Donald Trump how to speak Japanese.
What, you're kidding?
Donald Trump is very fluent in Japanese. He turned into quite the mathematician as well. He studied with the brightest minds.
Donald Trump was studying physics with this Japanese guy. Is that what you're saying? At MIT?
He studied physics and mathematics, correct, in MIT.
But he wasn't even a student on the record. So was he getting private tutoring, or?
He was being tutored on campus. So therefore, in my opinion, that makes him a student. Whether or not he paid is none of my business.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think Donald Trump is a physicist?
Trump is a physicist.
So this is actually a picture of Donald Trump with Yukio Takahama, his mentor. It was so hard to find this photo. I dug so deep for this. But this is proof right here.
So this is a photo of Trump at MIT with all these equations behind him, or whatever's on the board there. Trump is a Japanese trained quantum physicist. This is the photo that I found that led me down the rabbit hole that led me to that interview. This is another picture of Trump at MIT with other physicists and all these equations. He's potentially a lot smarter than we realize. This is him with a stack of books on his desk, one of them being The Quantum Man. And this is him with another book, The Evolution of Physics, The Great Ideas from Early Concepts to Relativity and Quanta. Very
Albert
interesting.
Einstein and another guy.
Right. And then this is a Q drop that literally said, time travel is fun, or And then they linked this tweet, which thank God Brad Getz screenshotted this tweet because it's no longer available since they did the purge. But it said, do you believe in coincidence? So what are they telling you? They're saying time travel is fun, or do you believe in coincidence? Which is basically telling you that they are time traveling. That's it. They're telling you right to your face. Time travel is fun.
Yep.
Now, this is the Baron Trump books he was talking about. This is the Marvelous Underground Journey where Baron Trump this is written in 1892, by the way, 1893. And it's about a kid named Baron Trump who discovers an inner Earth civilization. But what's interesting is the Baron Trump in the book from 1893 looks identical to Baron Trump now. I mean, I don't know. It's a striking resemblance, if you ask me.
It definitely looks like him.
People are saying the Ingersoll Lockwood books, they had to be time travelers for the information in those books to be true. They had to have known about the Trump's presidency and Baron Trump. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And then if you look at Baron Trump, look how tall he is. If you're going to talk about Pleiadian or an ET, this is at age 17, and look how tall he is. He's 6'7" at age 17.
Right.
He's a giant.
Or a hybrid, half human, half Pleiadian or whatever.
Right. And this is basically the synopsis of The Last President, which I ordered and read specifically just for this webinar. And it's scarily accurate. This was written in 1896, and it literally spells out the 2016 election almost to a T with scary accuracy. It says 1900 or The Last President by Ingersoll Lockwood is a surrealistic 1896 novel where Americans are protesting a corrupt election process while the president's hometown of New York City is fearing the collapse of a republic after the transition of presidential power. If this reminds you of the attitudes after the 2016 Trump presidential win, you are not alone. During 2017, this book, as well as Lockwood's two children's books, The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger, and The Baron Trump Marvelous Underground Journey, drew attention to its uncanny connections with the President Trump and his family. Does this book foresee Donald Trump as the last president of the Republic as we know it? Is this a bizarre coincidence or prophetic? Let the reader decide. Now, this is Eric the Healer. If you guys know who he is, he has an incredible story about Trump being a time traveler.
So this is when he claims he met Trump, I don't know how long ago, in the 80s, I think?
Yeah, he tells the whole story here.
He tells the whole story.
But this is a fascinating story. If it's true, then it's mind-blowing.
Families that, my family said, we're not like them, but we have to lay low because they'll kill us. And they said, and there's a prophecy that one of us is going to clean this up. Is that you, Eric? And I secretly knew. My dad always thought I'd be a policeman or a preacher, and I knew I was, that kind of guy to go and, clean things up and get the truth out. And so I was working at the movie theater in Century City, and it just started. And all of a sudden, I see this guy in the theater in the lobby. And I was just about to kick. I quickly looked at all the doors to see how this guy got in because no tickets were sold, and he just appeared out of nowhere. And I said, and when I was walking to him to throw him out, he said, "Eric, do you recognize who I am?" And I quickly looked at my name tag, and I was like, "No, this guy didn't. This guy knows me. He didn't see my name tag." And I looked at him. I said, "Wow, you're Donald J. Trump." And he said, "Wow, I'm really impressed you recognize me." He said, I'm going to be president in the future, and I'd like to talk to you. And I laughed. I said, I want to be president too in the future, but it's a low level of consciousness. And he laughed and he said, "You're right." But then he got really serious and looked at me and he said, "But we have to use these people to get where we're going." And see, right when he said that, I thought, wow, okay, I'm going to go work for the government and the state. And that was in 85. And I worked for the government 7 years later, and then the state after that. So as a whistleblower and trying to figure out what's going on. So he said, "Do you have a moment? We'll sit down." There was this Ames black leather chair at the Plitt Theater's in Century City. It's now a Cineplex Odeon, but it's on the Avenue of the Stars. We won the best theater. And so he's a big, tall guy. When he sat down, I could see the top of his head was kind of bald. And he hairsprayed his hair flat on one side, and he laid it over. And I was thinking, just, God, why don't you just shave it off, And then he must have got my brainwaves because he looked at my hair and he said, You do have nice hair. And I was like, how does this guy know me? You know, and I thought maybe he's watching me through the CCTV because he was in the law offices next to us. He had the whole top floor at the theater, at the two Japanese buildings next to us, the triangular shaped buildings. And so we talked for over an hour, and he picked my brain. He said that we talked about the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the fake currency. When we were done, he asked me if I was. He said he knew I played chess because I was seeing many moves ahead. This was in '85, and I was talking about what's going on now. We spoke for over an hour, and I'm telling you that Donald Trump is a time traveler. And about 6 years ago, I saw pictures of him from 1985 with a full head of hair, and I realized what had happened. That wasn't the one I met. That I met the one from the future, because his friend John G. Trump was friends with Tesla, and they got the footlockers with all the notes and information, and they had the time travel technology. And so what I want to tell you is that our sixth sense is psychic ability, but our seventh sense is both time travel and levitation. Okay. And that leads us to the next story, where when I came back to Sacramento in the 90s, I had this girlfriend that was Portuguese. And one night she came over and she said that she'd met this alien. And I laughed and I said, how do you know he's an alien? He says, well, he was making these things fly in the air and go circles and he was levitating. And I said, wow. And I said, well, I want to meet him. And she laughed and she said, that's what he said. He said that you'd want to meet him. I said, he knows who I am? He said, yeah. He knows who you are. That's why he came to me for me to tell you about him. And I said, okay, well, tell me. He says, well, his name is Q. And I said, wow. I said, describe him. She says, well, he's a short Filipino-looking guy. And I said, okay. And he said that he's not ready to meet you now, but he wants you to know about him. So I said, okay. And I forgot about it completely. Okay. And then let's fast forward now to 2013 when I met Laura and started speaking. My spirit guide said it's safe to speak and go out. The time is different now. So I became a public speaker to get information out. And I had in the audience some friends that were coming regularly, to all the conferences. And one of them was a short Filipino guy named Jay. His name was Jay. And I'm sure Laura knows him too. Everybody's seen him. My friends remember him, and I have a picture of him too. And so we were at Joshua Tree, and I parked always by the pool, and I was about to go in the jacuzzi, and Jay showed up, and he had a woolen ski cap, and I didn't think anything of it. We're in the desert, it's hot kind of, and he's wearing a wool ski cap. Well, he wants to go to the jacuzzi with me and talk. So he pulls off his ski cap, his wool cap, and all of a sudden, I see him shapeshift. I see his head is a heart-shaped skull. And I just was shocked. And I said, holy shit, you're an alien. And he smiled and we hugged. And he told me, we like what you're doing and we want you to keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, I was just so shocked. And I felt this guy's love. And then he offered me this green drink that I wish I had drunk. But, hindsight is 20/20. And it would have probably activated me and woken me up or whatever. But I said no. I thought I was too crazy, and I was in shock, and I didn't want any, and I really wish I had had some. But last month, I was looking at a keyboard, and I saw the letter J on it, and I thought of him, and I smiled. And then I thought to count the keys, and I started counting which letter of the keyboard J was, and it was the 17th letter on the keyboard. And I smiled, and I realized that I'd met Q, because he was a short Filipino guy. And so I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, I hope you have a lie detector test or something. You can test me. I have no reason to lie. I'm not selling. I don't have a book. I don't have a book yet. I'm still living my book. He is alive and it's a team and there's something going on, that there's a sting operation going on and deep state. Well, whatever. Somebody's going down. Okay, somebody's going down, and it's not the good guys.
And I did look, and J is the 17th letter. If you count from left to right, starting with the letters, J is 17.
Q is the first letter. on the keyboard.
And Q is the first. Yeah, interesting.
17th from the Q letter. Yeah.
So my dad found this book, this Hopi prophecy book, that literally it's a Hopi prophecy that describes somebody very similar to Trump. Check it out. Actually, the book is called The Bear Tribe's Self-Reliance Book, and I'll put pictures of this on screen, which is not what you would never look to this book for research about, whatever, Trump. And it says, "It is known that our true white brother, when he comes, will be all powerful, and he will wear a red cap." Like, what is that even like?
That's wild, dude.
Yes. "He will be large in population and belong to no religion but his very own. He will bring with him the sacred stone tablets. Great will be his coming. None will be able to stand against him. All power in this world will be placed in his hand, and he will come swiftly and in one day get control of this whole continent. Hopi have been warned never to take up arms." Either way, it might not mean anything, just interesting. True white brother in a red cap is going to come save the world. Not that Trump's saving the world, not that he's a savior, but it's just an interesting prophecy. And then this talks about Ivanka Trump being a time traveler.
What would you say if I said Donald Trump and Ivanka Trump have a lot to do with Project Looking Glass? How? Let's go ahead and dive into this video.
Ivanka, New Year, Paris, The Looking Glass. Let's get into it. Ivanka posts a series of photos from Paris. Standing on top of the Eiffel Tower, looking through this telescope thing, standing in front of a giant clock in an all-black outfit. Mona Lisa with Jared, having lunch or breakfast outside. So I looked into it, and it hit me because Q just took photos of the Eiffel Tower a couple weeks before that. So I'm thinking, all right, there's got to be something here. So then it hit me. The book, A Race Around the World. Let me read a little bit of this for you. In 1889, New York reporter Nellie Bly, inspired by Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days, began a circumnavigation she hoped to complete in less time. Her trip was sponsored by her employer, The World. Just hours after her ship set out across the Atlantic, another New York publication put writer Elizabeth Bisland on a westbound train. Bisland was heading around the world in the opposite direction, thinking she could beat Bly's time. Only one woman could win the race, but both completed their journeys in record time. So, record time, you got Ivanka standing in front of the clock, right? So that's, I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, but what drew me to the book was what they were wearing. And if you look at what Ivanka's wearing on top of the Eiffel Tower, she's wearing the exact same jacket as the character in the book, A Race Around the World. And behind her on the covers, they have a picture, or a clock behind these characters, and they're literally trying to beat time. So, Looking Glass, time, you've got this anomaly with this coincidence of the jacket. But now you open up the book. Now let's flip to some pages in the book, and what do we have here? The main character getting off at the train station and just happened to be wearing the exact same outfit that Ivanka is wearing in front of the clock tower. I mean, that's 2 for 2. That's insane. I mean, there's definitely a connection here of some sort of coincidence. But wait, let's see what else we can do with this. Now back to the cover of the book. I mean, look at the sky in the background. It's it's practically the same sky as in the Paris photos from Ivanka's Instagram. Again, probably just purely coincidental. You have Ivanka's Instagram with Jared looking at the mirror, the glass. I mean, literally the looking glass, okay? The yellow background, and she just happens to write, reflecting on a new year with the yellow heart. Now, why the yellow heart? Yellow heart is Q in the color code. We've seen Melania do this with the yellow dress, and now Ivanka with the yellow heart. Again, signaling Q, the color. Now, with all this going on with the Instagram photos and the looking glass ideas and all kinds of stuff like that, the clothing, time travel, how do we take all that and connect it to a Q post, okay? Now, Ivanka's Instagram posted at 5:48 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. There just happens to be a Q post with the words "racing around the world" in it. The date of that Q post is May 4th, 2018, which is 548.
So, are the Trumps all time travelers? After reading the Sands of Times books and realizing how the time travel devices literally basically become watches, something you could wear on your belt or a watch, if it's true, why couldn't they be? Why could this whole Q operation, like this, a temporal war?
Yeah, I mean, the evidence points all to that, right?
So this is finally the media asked Trump about Q, and this is Trump's response. After all this time, everyone wanted to know why the media never asked Trump about Q.
All right, while we're denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and that disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is a satanic cult run by the deep
study
state.
The subject. I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by Republicans.
Republican Senator Ben Sass said, quote, QAnon is nuts, and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories.
He may be
Why not
right.
just say it's
Can I be
crazy and
honest?
not true?
He may be right. I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me ask you
all
another
about
thing.
it. Let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy, I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more in this vein.
Let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree with it.
But there's not
very
a
strongly.
satanic pedophile
I have
cult
no
being run
idea.
by-
I know
You
nothing
don't know
about
that? Okay.
No, I don't know
You
that.
just
and
this
neither
week.
do you know that.
At the crux of the theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind? Or
Well, I haven't heard that, but is that supposed to be a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, you know, if I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put myself out there.
So you see that girl turn into a demon whenever Trump was not like that. You could see it in their eyes. That's what a reptilian consciousness looks like.
Right.
And that's who's running the show.
Probably a lot of mind control with her going on as
Right.
well. They're programming her to be.
So Operation Warp Speed. Everyone flipped out when Trump promoted the vaccine. Well, let's take a deeper look here. What do we know about time travel? Trump being time travel, the Q operation, all that stuff, quantum technology. Now Operation Warp Speed takes on a whole new meaning. Why would they choose that word? When I was looking it up, look what I found. First of all, the media, you think Operation Warp Speed, program that speeds up the process of getting the vaccine out, would be a good thing. Not to the media. They hated it. This is what I found. Trump's Warp Speed Vaccine Summit zooms into alternative reality. The U.S. government's drive for a coronavirus vaccine was named Operation Warp Speed by Peter Marks, an official at the Food and Drug Administration and longtime Star Trek fan. Why are they putting this stuff in the mainstream media article? Alternative reality. Operation Warp Speed, longtime Star Trek fan. A staple of Star Trek storylines is alternative realities. Someone slipping through a wormhole into a parallel universe where history took a radically different turn. Cable news viewers went through the wormhole at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. 2 captains, 2 crews, 2 languages, 1 English, and the other Klingon. This is from The Guardian. I don't understand why they would use this sort of language in an article talking about a vaccine program. Right? Operation Warp Speed is something so much more than this vaccine thing that people think it is, and they all demonize Trump over it. Well,
they're putting the truth in plain sight.
Trump's Operation Warp Speed document shows big military involvement. Why would a vaccine program need big military involvement? I went to almost every single branch of the military has a page on Operation Warp Speed. Why? It's because the military is involved in this operation. This is from the Department of Defense website. Operation Warp Speed official, first COVID-19 vaccines to arrive Monday. Heavy military involvement. Fauci, and this is the media just shitting all over Operation Warp Speed. Fauci calls naming of Trump administration Operation Warp Speed unfortunate, says it implies reckless speed. Some worry Operation Warp Speed plays into anti-vaccination movement hands. Trump is not my God. How the former president's only vaccine victory turned sour. They had to demonize it at all costs. Well, let's talk about what Operation Warp Speed potentially did.
So this is the strategy. Get as many vaccines out as possible before the FDA approval. Releasing them under the FDA trial period increases the percentage of placebo/saline injections, potentially saving lives. Media hated Trump's Johnson & Johnson jab. Why? It would have been political suicide to come out against the vaccine entirely. That is very true. It would have made Trump look like a dictator and the media would have ran with it. Very true. Reversal. The deep state never expected this move and it forced their hand. I agree with that. Arguably raised awareness of the harmful side effects.
It did, because people are like, you can't put out a vaccine that quick without testing it. So it forced people into looking into the side effects. If you release them before the FDA approval, there's a higher percentage that most of those are placebo or saline shots, which you're potentially saving lives if people are getting the saline shots. And Trump was promoting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which every mainstream media outlet shit all over it. They hated the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Even my stepmom's doctor she wanted the Johnson & Johnson one because that's what Trump was promoting. And her doctor tried to talk her out of it into getting either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. And she had to argue with her doctor to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because it was the placebo vaccine.
Right.
And Trump was literally saving lives by getting people to get that one, potentially. This is all theory. But there's so much more to the warp speed than met the eye.
And by the way, some of the vaccines were tested and proven to be saline. That's a fact. Some of them were tested and proven to be saline.
Right. So if Q is real, why did Trump lose? Has Biden been the catalyst we've been waiting for? Benefits of Biden. Trump can't be blamed if major overt operations had to occur. So they're still trying to blame him. He's not even in office and they're still blaming him for everything. But now Biden could be the fall guy for all the negative stuff. Now all the world's going to shit and it's all on Biden's shoulders and everybody sees it. Hollywood, White House, proof we are watching a movie. So we all know that the inauguration was fake. We covered that in the Clone webinar. And we know that the White House was fake. It was a Castlewood Studios. And that was provable. They were filming the White House in a fake set. So there was proof we were watching a movie. We got to see that thanks to Biden. It woke people up to election fraud, rigging, and agendas because Biden won. People experience and are shown firsthand the corruption of the deep state agendas rather than just being told, like Q said, you have to show them. It has to be ingrained in our DNA so this never happens again. Monarch mind control, monarch programming is basically mind controlling somebody down to the DNA level so their offspring carry that same program. Well, that can also happen with this information. If it happens, if we're changed at a DNA level, like this is going to change our future generations. The art of war tactic, 5G chess, setting up misinformation traps. And now we know who the cabal is, all because Biden got in office. And then Trump always talked about his favorite book being The Art of War. And one of the Q drops was never interfere with an enemy while he's in the process of destroying himself, which is something that's very prominent in the art of war. It says Sun Tzu's Art of War is almost certainly the most famous study of strategy ever written. And this is Trump again saying one book that I would suggest to you because it is invaluable for business and managerial strategies is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. This was apparently written in the 6th century BC and is a study of military strategy. It has been influential to leaders for many centuries. And General Douglas MacArthur studied it as well as other famed military strategists throughout history. It may sound like an unusual business school recommendation, but believe me, it isn't. It's valuable and worth your time. He was always talking about this. And then this is Simon Esler talking about why the art of war is crucial.
Yeah. So he's talking about how the whole Q operation was an art of war military strategy, basically getting humanity involved.
This is our episode with Simon Esler. What episode number is it, Aaron?
54.
Episode 54, where he has some great information about Trump and Q and the art of war strategy.
You just essentially broke down Q.
Right, exactly. Like one of my major inspirations for this series was how do we reconcile the like light love trap that's causing so much like, impotency in this community? How do we reconcile that with how effective the Q operation has been? Because Q is like the Q operation is a war fighting operation. All its effectiveness comes from war fighting, from the wisdom of war, right? That's like 100% what's going on. So you cannot love and light your way into the kind of effectiveness Q has shown, right? And it's just like a numbers game, like the number of people that operation has woken up. So, you look at that and it's like, okay, well, clearly war fighting strategies and war fighting has something to give here because people are waking up in droves.
Yeah.
Based on this operation. So what can we learn here? And that was an initial inspiration. I'm like, okay, I got to look at war more closely because damn, they woke a ton of people up. They found a way to basically engage the public as a war fighting like tactic, right? So it's like, to me, the war fighting strategy that Q is utilizing is based on the removal of the deep state. That is the larger strategy at play, right? It's about removing this embedded collective of actors from power, like fully, completely, entirely, and legally. Then, you have that overarching strategy. And then within that strategy, there is an operation that's about informing and activating the public and turning this awakened portion of the public into an asset for that war fighting strategy. So, sometimes people say that like QAnon is like a dissemination operation. And like, I think that's like a limiting way to look at it. Cause I really think the dissemination aspect and the public engagement aspect that, that's just one thing about this larger strategy. So, I think it's really interesting to see that, we're part of an operation in this larger strategic effort that the QAnon group is putting forward. And it's like really, really so incredible. So a lot of that stuff, like a lot of those tactics like that, they come straight from Sun Tzu's The Art of War. So, there's things like Sun Tzu says that you need to develop a level of trust with your soldiers. You need to have them trust you to the point that they'll be in a position where they do not know what's going on and you can't tell them what's going on. They have to be in the dark for operational purposes. And regardless of that, they will trust you. Like that's one of the teachings in The Art of War,
Interesting.
Or that to an extent, your soldiers have to become a conduit for disinformation to make sure that they mislead the enemy. And that's just like a part of war, right? Because all warfare is based on deception.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you start to look at it that way and look at the whole like disinformation is necessary, that it's like not only is it necessary to disinform the deep state, it was necessary to use us as a conduit for disinformation because that's war fighting. But on the other side of it, they have the future proves past protocol in place, and that's to develop morale and trust and to build that more and more fundamentally over time so that we can be in the dark about aspects of the operation, but not turn that into an element of distrust.
Yeah.
And that comes from Sun Tzu. Like, that's straight from that wisdom, you know? So it's like very interesting that Donald Trump cites that as one of his favorite books.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I do recall seeing that now, and having that understanding and that background, you'll understand some of his tactics even within his tweets.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which might seem crazy or make zero sense to a majority of the people, but somebody who is on that mindset, on that level, might see it.
Well, I think that's, you know, that's when you talk about his book, The Art of the Deal, I think that's part of the inspiration. It was inspired by the art of war, right? This is, he sees business as warfare. He's always seen it that way.
Yeah.
So, you know, to put someone of that mindset into the office of the president and then into this collaboration with all these military and intelligence people that are like top of their field. I mean, that's just so crazy. It blows my mind, like constantly.
Yeah, great explanation, breakdown of the art of war. And this is a meme I made back whenever Biden got inaugurated. I said 1 week into his fake presidency, and Biden is red pilling more people than Morpheus.
Right. I remember that even early on, like people were waking up just because of Biden himself.
Overnight, all the fake executive orders, the fake signatures, nothing matched up. I mean, it was all
fake White House set that clearly was being filmed in. Right.
Okay, this is it, guys. This is one last video, and then there's like 2 slides after this, and we're done. So Daryl recorded this specifically for this webinar, and he was told back in 2005 about the Q operation, and this is what he was told about it. And let me say, he talks about Q going dark and then coming back, and he said when it comes back, it would be infiltrated and something different, and that happened. Q went silent, and when it finally came back, everyone, even the diehard followers, agreed it didn't have the same feel anymore. And this is Daryl's explanation. So when we first interviewed you, you told us about Robert, your XO, telling you about the Q operation and what it would be. But this was back in the year 2005, if I'm correct?
Yeah, I think it would have been about 2005. Yeah, around 2000. Or early, it was probably like the winter, like January, February of 2005.
So at this point, you were back from the 20 and back, and you were on the military base here in real time. And Robert was giving you basically a briefing of what happened. And one of the things that he told you was about the Q operation, correct?
Yes. I've been back for almost 2 years, and he was telling me about there would be he called it what do you call it? A coup. That's what he said. Yeah, he said there's going to be a coup, but he said it's going to be a good coup, like a coup that you want. And he said part of that, is there's going to be something called Q. And Q, he said, was like military officers and some enlisted, but not just from the United States, like all around the world. And it would be kind of like this Q resistance thing. But he said that it would be real in the beginning, and then it would it would go away for 4 or 5 months, but it would come back. And he said, and that's not real. He said, but it doesn't matter because it's already started by then. And he told me about, the South Park episode. He said that the Park Q, I think it was called. And he said that the military would approach Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park to do that episode. And he said that, the characters would be a little over the top with the whole Q thing. And it was kind of making fun of the public, who they assume every gesture and every, if somebody holds up 2 fingers, it means this, or somebody says that, it means. So they're kind of making it like, light of how seriously people are taking it. But he said it was basically just, it was kind of like a soft disclosure. It was just a way to kind of plant the seeds in the people's heads. And in that episode, they went to, the adrenochrome and all that stuff like that. And you could always kind of tell when the South Park what they actually mean, in my opinion, the writers, what their all jokes aside, by the very end, And at the very end, it was Mr. Garrison, who was supposed to be Donald Trump. And he gets on the phone in the White House, and he gets on the phone and he says, "Hello, Hollywood," and then he looks right at the camera and says, "You child murdering pedophiles." And then that was the end of the episode. And that's kind of like, in my opinion, in South Park, how you can always tell what they're actually, the message they're actually trying to get across is the very end.
And so, yeah, that's incredible. And so, Robert, did he explain to you what Q actually was? Like some sort of quantum computer thing, a time travel looking glass thing? I mean, did he explain any of that?
It was. He said it was a quantum computer, and they were using Looking Glass. But he said it was kind of just, it was just a bunch of military officers that were basically in the middle of a coup and a revolt against what was happening, and what our governments and what our militaries are trying to pull off right now. And he told me that, like, the last straw for the military was, he said, "Daryl, they start castrating children," is what he said to me. And he said that's when the military really stepped in. He said that, like, Ronald Reagan was our last real president, pretty much, as far as a president who did what he thought was right and was in control of things. And then he said the military got upset when George Bush Sr. was elected, because they knew about him. They knew he was CIA and how corrupt he was. And they started talking then. And then once Bill Clinton became president, they really didn't like him because of all the, things with cocaine. And, there's that story of that kid who saw a shipment. They used to drop shipments, I think, from C-130s, some pallets and parachutes. And I guess a kid on a bicycle saw it happen and pulled up to see what it was. And, CIA or whatever they were, that they shot the kid. And yeah, and then he said, he said that's when the military went into overdrive, is when the Clintons went into power. And, he said that, I think George Bush Jr. was just kind of a puppet. They really didn't see him as any kind of threat. He was just doing what everybody else told him to do. And, they saw Obama as a great threat. And and Obama wasn't even president yet, but he was telling me about, Obama would become president. And so it was basically just a bunch of officers that were fed up with this whole agenda, and they could kind of see, and people try to take the military as this one monolithic, being and things like that. But these people have families themselves, and they don't want their families to be destroyed by whatever this satanic movement is. And
Right.
they were fed up with it.
So this would indicate this. So if he was telling you this stuff in 2005, that would mean that they either had to have some sort of time travel technology, or he was a time traveler himself, or they were using Looking Glass to look down the timeline. So that would indicate, did Robert ever tell you anything about, like, himself? Like, how did he know that information?
Well, he said how he brought it up to me when he was talking to me is, he said, "I saw your father." I said, "How did you do that?" I said, "He's been dead for years." He said, "Through the Looking Glass." And he said that he told me, and he said, "You saw the Looking Glass." He said, "You used it." But I really didn't have a lot of memories of it. I still don't. But he says it's a machine where, like ET tech, where you could see into the future with a 94% accuracy. And I think it's like 4% another outcome, and then like a 2% variable. Because he said is how it worked. And you can either observe things just like, Alice in Wonderland through the Looking Glass, or you could step through the Looking Glass. So most of the time they just observe to see what outcomes are going to be like. And it's, like I said, it's a 94% accuracy of how well they can see into the future. But you can go back in time and you can see people from back in time. And then I think that's pretty much 100% accuracy, unless somebody actually goes back in time and changes the timeline somehow. But from where you're at in time, if you go back from there, then it's pretty much 100% accuracy. But from where you are in the future, it's only about a 94. But 94 is still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he saw my dad, and he raced cars, and he was telling me he had thick glasses, and he used to roll his sleeves up on his T-shirt. He was telling me all these things, so I would believe him, because he could tell I was kind of like, I didn't know what to think of everything he was telling me, and I really didn't believe it. So he kind of related to me that way, where he took a family member that I knew, and my father, and he told me everything about him.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's incredible. So, I mean, and we did see Q disappear for a while and then come back, and it didn't have the same feeling. Everybody, even the hardcore Q people, collectively agreed it didn't feel the same anymore. So, I really do think there was some sort of infiltration, but like you said, I guess the plan was already in motion, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, well, that's something else he said. He said that every scenario they ran through Project Looking Glass, like this is going to happen. This overthrow of the government, as the government is right now, but it's going to be much better. He told me he said all the world's wealth is going to go back to where it came from. He said everything was logged meticulously. All the gold, all the diamonds, all these things that were taken from different countries, this would all be given back to these countries. And it would all just be like kind of like a reset, like a restart, and then trade would be developed, and it would be fair trade. It wouldn't be any of this, sending in assassins to kill someone's leader and then having a revolt happen, and then the military comes in, and that's just the CIA's kind of like how they wage war. That they kill a leader, and then they put a puppet in, and then usually a war happens, and yeah, and no more of that. He said that's not even going to be a real thing anymore. So no more wars, none of these false wars, none of this stuff. Like I said, all trade would be very fair, and then everybody's natural resources would go back to their home countries, and it would kind of be like a restart. Everybody would just start all over again.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all this stuff and hopping on and doing this video just for the webinar. We really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible information, and I think it's important that we keep reiterating this, because if this is true, what he told you in 2005, that's incredible. And we're talking about the reality of time travel here, and looking glass technology and quantum computing and things we don't quite understand, and a lot of people aren't really ready to grasp yet. So thank you for adding to the story, adding to the puzzle.
Yeah, and he said it could be slowed down, but it can't be stopped. And I think we're a few years behind as far as what they thought was going to happen. But he said they'd be able to slow it down by several years, but yeah, it can't be stopped, because everything they ran through Project Looking Glass, it all says that this is the outcome.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for joining us, Daryl. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah.
Can't be stopped. It can only be delayed by a few years, and I think we're in that delay period right now.
That goes along with what Bill Wood said. He said both chess players know the game is over. All that the deep state can do is delay. He said all they can do is prolong the game, but they know the game's over, and they can only prolong so much. They can't indefinitely keep prolonging it.
Right. So this is just for fun. Recently, this is from January 28th, 2024. Project Unity said, "Why do you think Donald Trump has a replica of the Ark of the Covenant in his home in Mar-a-Lago?" Well, there's a whole fandom about the Ark of the Covenant and Indiana Jones being a time traveler. But why can't we find certain artifacts like the Ark of the Covenant, Holy Grail, or even alien artifacts? Have time travelers taken them? After all, what would be the value in the future where time travel is possible? And then this is a fandom page about the Ark of the Covenant being a time travel device, and Indiana Jones is secretly a time traveler. Just interesting that Trump has exact replica of the Ark of the Covenant in Mar-a-Lago, and he won't let anyone have access to it. And some of the comments under the tweet were saying maybe it's the real thing. Maybe Trump has the real thing right there.
All we know, it's the real thing, right?
Yeah. And what's interesting, I forgot about this video. Trump is the bait, checkmate. This is crucial to play to wrap this up with. But when I type in 5D chess, the very first thing that comes up on Google is 5D chess with multiverse time travel. The very first image. And Trump and Q are always talking about 5D chess. And let's just play this last video here.
Okay, so this has to be one of the biggest decodes I've ever done since I started doing videos on TikTok. Please like and share this video. If you have to, watch it again. It's very important. Now, we've heard time and time again from a certain letter of the alphabet, how do you legally introduce evidence into a court of law? Now, the military intelligence agency has been collecting data for decades. But here's the problem. They couldn't use that evidence because of a certain term called the fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning if that evidence was obtained illegally or not by the certain legal terms, it could be thrown out by a court of law. Now, we've constantly heard from 45 that he caught them all. He's got it all. All the treason, the sedition, everything against the cabal. Now, as president, or even after president, he couldn't just go to the courts and just produce the evidence, because you need to have a legal standing to present the evidence. And as we all know, the courts are corrupt. They would throw it out. They would be like, before it even goes to the discovery phase, they would say he has no standing, kind of like what we saw at the Supreme Court level of the 2020 election. But instead of going to the courts, he's having the courts come to him. A lot of these court cases, especially the one down in Georgia about the election rigging, I think it's February 28th, which, by the way, is going to be televised, he has the opportunity to defend himself by producing the evidence. How do you legally introduce evidence into the court of law? He baited them into taking him to court to actually introduce this evidence that they've had against the cabal legally into the courts against them. You see, in these cases, Trump's not the defendant. He's the bait. Checkmate, motherfuckers. Cheers.
Checkmate, motherfuckers. It's interesting, and that trial's coming up on February 28th. So it's right here. And we are in the midst of it all. Like the whole Q operation, like, it never went anywhere. The things are still happening behind the scenes, and we might be seeing all the fruits of that labor now manifest before our eyes. And we don't know what to expect this year, but things aren't as they seem, as we know. And I forgot we added so much. So this is actually from our episode with Lexia Eisenhower, and who's going to be a speaker at our conference, and her husband, talking about black magic and witchcraft. And she brought up something very interesting about Trump in this video.
This has gone into what we call into modern day witchcraft. And like, that's another thing. Is it good? Is it bad? It doesn't matter if we believe in magic, but other people do. And like, it's a known thing that like everyone laughs at Trump for tweeting at 3 a.m. And then those tweets actually are coming true or did come to pass.
The witching hour, isn't it? Isn't 3 a.m. the witching hour?
Yep. Yes, it is.
So
and he won.
Go back to that other slide, please. That, like, I sit like that without even realizing it sometimes, you know, like some of these things, like, I don't know if they're intentional or not. Or in his case, in a position of power, he probably has to be very aware of what he's doing with his hands. But what does that actually mean?
So we have hand gestures. What I've looked it up, and I've seen two different things. One, when you place your hands like that, you're creating a shield. So if something comes towards you, it'll break off and it'll literally go around you.
So you're saying he tweeted at 3 a.m. and because, like, what's the significance of that in this case?
So there's a couple different things. One, first and foremost, he won the election in 2016 at 3 a.m. And whenever he talks about it, I just watched his last little rally, and he's like, and we got her at 3 a.m. And there's something about manifestation happening at 3 a.m. If you wish upon something, if you have people, especially a lot of people honing in on one idea, then a manifestation that you're intending to happen will happen. So, and he also had a weird thing, and I didn't even know this until this search. There's a bunch of times that he tweeted at 3 a.m., not just like one time. Like, these are, if you go to this article, like there's a bunch of tweets. So he set intention at 3 a.m. He won an election at 3 a.m. So just interesting to know. I don't know if it's just ironic. If you look at pictures of him, he's always doing it. It's not just like one or two times. Whenever he's around, especially in the later years when I think attacks were coming at him, his little hands are always like, oh, it's just interesting to know. One of those things like when is a coincidence too much, you know?
And Tyler's right. I mean, that's a very common type of hand gesture. And you're right. He's very aware of what he is doing with his hands.
Just interesting. Just an interesting note to end on. There's black magic involved, and the deep state knows it. And part of the reason that they needed Hillary, even though like these people might be puppets, they need somebody of that bloodline in a position of power for their black magic to be effective.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And so this is what we're looking at. And you can bet your ass that, you know, this is a spiritual war, like they say. And what's interesting is the Biden the election in 2020 was stolen at 3 a.m. So they were using
doing it
using the 3 a.m. witching hour to steal the election. And that's when and Trump even made note specifically of, oh, some van or something showing up at 3 a.m. They constantly throw around 3 a.m. They know when it's most powerful to do magic. This is Trump saying, this is the final battle. He continued, they know it, I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. This is it. Either they win or we win. And if they win, we no longer have a country.
World, actually.
Right. We no longer have a world.
Yeah, he said country.
This is the Q drop. It had to be done this way. Q. And the Anon said, throw us a bone, Q. We've all been waiting for what seemed like an eternity. What's going on? It had to be done this way. And guys, do not let Q turn into a religion or a cult, and make sure that you look at the actual drops before you just go blindly believing any of the information that's going around right now on the internet about Q and all these predictions and all these things. A lot of it's disinformation because it's necessary. A lot of it's optics. You are watching a movie, but Q is only a stepping stone to a much greater understanding of reality. Detach from the outcome and do not give your power away to war. Just allow Q to be a stepping stone. It does not have to become a religion like so many people have turned it into. And that's why it gets ridiculed, because people have blown it so out of proportion, just like the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's gotten so far away from the original message.
Or made it into an external savior and gave there are people that do that. So I totally get the people that throw out the baby with the bathwater, because there are people that clearly are doing that with Q and with Trump and things like that. It's not, Q is trying to point you to your own power. It's the exact opposite, guys. So the fact, if you're giving your power away to Q and to the white hats, well, they're trying to say you are that. The power's within you. It's within all of us. And the more of us that wake up, take our power back, that's how we win this war. And it's happening.
We are the white hats.
But the dark wants you to think there's some external savior that's going to come save you, and you're just going to sit and wait for it.
Right.
No. That's not what Q is. That's what some people have made it into. That's not what Q itself or the white hats or any of this stuff is. The power is within you. We are the ones who've been waiting for.
Absolutely. And guys, I can't believe that there's still 60 people here after 4 hours.
Yeah, that's
over
amazing.
4 hours. I can't believe we did it. I don't know why we do this to ourselves. I don't even, like, when we put this together and we're rehearsing it, it's like, it does not seem like it's going to take that long. And then here we are, and it's like, wow, this is like a whole time travel webinar. We're like,
time traveling right now.
Right. I don't even know how we even, like, going through all this. I'm like, damn, we put a lot into this.
Well, we wanted to do it justice, and I feel like we did.
Right.
I feel like we did it justice.
I mean, I had so much fun going down this rabbit hole, and let me tell you, there's so much more we could have added, because Q is just a massive topic. And if you really,
big. Right.
if you really go and dive into those drops, you'll never come out. But I hope we did our due diligence and covered everything and brought in all aspects and covered this from every angle, including the reptilians, including the time travelers, including the ETs, the space programs, all of it, the military operations, even down to the politics, and which it isn't even about. But it covers everything. And I don't think most people who weren't paying attention when who weren't aware of Q, or they weren't even awake when Q first hit the scene, I don't think there's any way of really understanding what it truly was unless you were awake and aware while it was happening in real time. And thank God that we were, because over 50% of our research was all from memory, things that we remembered and things that we were able to go back and find because of that. Had we gone into this just now trying to learn about Q, we would not have come up with the same results.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a library of episodes to reference. I mean, we had a lot of information and just things by memory and stuff I remembered, and I got to go back and look for. So it really paid to be aware during that time, because now we're able to bring this information, and we hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks so much for sticking with us. We love you all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for signing up to Patreon, and hope to see as many of you as possible at the conference in May.
Yes.
And meet you in person.
Yes, we'd love to see you there. Please come out and join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think people realize how much fun it actually is when we get together in person and get to hang out for 4 or 5 days. It's magic. It's amazing getting to connect
It
with
really
Soul
is.
family. So rebelsofdisclosure.com, guys. If you want a ticket, you can go there and grab a ticket. Thank you guys so much. We love you all. We cannot do this without you. And we're going to
Yes.
go ahead and sign off. Let me get onto the page where I can actually X out of this, so we're not fumbling around whenever I say, okay, good night. All right, good night, guys. We love you. And until next time, have
Love
a
you.
great evening. Where
Good
we go
night,
one,
guys.
where we go all, nothing can stop what's coming. Trust the plan, the calm before the storm. Just say all of it.
Yeah. All those cue phrases.
Right. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We seriously love you all. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you to our dedicated fans and Patreons for being here. Good night.
Good night, guys.